So the challenge and sort of purpose for today's workshop.
I get overwhelmed when I try to complete an application for funding. My applications keep getting rejected. I don't even know where to start when I want to apply for a grant or residency, etc. That is the challenge that we're faced with, that we're trying to address today.
Who in this room has said any one of those phrases or heard it from another artist? Yeah, and those are actual quotes from people that we have heard in the community many times. So in today's workshop, we're really going to be going over how to define your creative self and your ideas in a way that's appealing and understandable. So those are two major components of really any application for any kind of artist opportunity, whether that's a grant, a residency, etc. We'll go over some different types. 4 different kinds of applications that artists would potentially apply for. There's probably more, but these are sort of the basic ideas. So grants, that's a pretty obvious one. Awards, which are a little different than a grant. So that is something that maybe you're not showing your qualifications or in that way, it's more of and you're not reporting on it. It's more of so the Ohio Arts Council has an Artistic Excellence Award, which is just a merit Cleveland Arts Prize. Those are awards. Residencies, there's a lot of different kinds of residencies for visual artists, for performing artists. That's really a time when you can go to somewhere, sometimes it's secluded, and really work on your artistic practice. It's supposed to be a special time for artists. And then RFQ and RFP, those are often things that we see coming from the city or the county. They're looking to hire an artist for some project or some kind of public work. Is there something that all of these different types of applications have in common? Yes, there is. So all require a who and a what. So the who is really going to be your artist statement, your statement about yourself and description of your creative practice. And then a what is going to be your proposal or your project description for the application.
We have some hot tips here. Please read through the instructions and guidelines before you get started. This is imperative with any process. You don't want to miss a step.
Identify what the funder is looking for. So each type of opportunity that you apply for has sort of an overall goal or theme. So it's really important to look at the application and kind of break it down and see what exactly are they asking for. Is it, something that's community-based? Is it they're just looking for someone to showcase their artistic abilities? Really look, and this is specific to funders, other types of opportunities, there's always going to be a sort of an underlying goal with that application. So make sure you kind of identify that.
We suggest you read all the application questions if you can. Many times they're laid out in the form, so you can read through them.
And then I always do this when I'm applying for anything. Save the application questions in another document. So it depends on the platform. Sometimes you can pull the application out of the platform and you can read the questions that way, copy and paste them into a Word document or a Google document, any kind of, put them in the notes in your phone. Just put them somewhere else so you can easily read them later as opposed to having to go into the platform, whatever online platform it is, and start working that way. I find it to be a lot easier. And then there's this lovely reminder at the end here.
Right. The applications are read by real people still. We are not using AI yet. Most funders are reading them themselves.
Another part of getting organized and kind of preparing to submit to anything is to really simplify. When you go back, like V said, to read some of those questions, sometimes one question is asking about 3 questions. So it's important when you're reading to really break it down, read it. Are they asking me multiple things? Can I pull out something here, in simpler terms for myself to understand it? That is really a huge part of being successful in applying for something. And now we're going to hear from an expert, Mr. Boris Oikerman, who is over here, and he is going to talk to us a little bit about the Cleveland Foundation and sort of their expectations.
I work at the Cleveland Foundation. I'm the Director of Arts and Culture there, which means I oversee grant making in arts and culture. But before that, I was a curator in the museum, and before that, I was an artist. So kind of going from being an artist to what I'm doing now, I had to deal with writing proposals pretty much from the very, very, very beginning. I started my career as an artist pretty late age. And the way I figured I can start without knowing anyone or having education in the arts is by doing residencies. And I just submitted a lot of residency proposals. So pretty much from stage 0, I started writing the proposals. And then as a curator in the museum, I had to write proposals to fund museum projects. And now I kind of cross the aisle and I read other people's proposals. What is really common between writing a proposal for a residency or for RFP or for grant or for any other kind of proposal, you're really writing a story. And you're writing a story for a real person, real human that's going to sit on the other end, most probably with like a very high heap of other proposals. So imagine somebody who needs to read dozens of proposals a day, and something needs to jump in them, at them. So and that thing that jumps at them would be usually a very, very straightforward story, a very simple story. This is what I'm doing, this is why it's important, and this is why I believe you should fund me or you should invite me for a residency. It's pretty much the same logic, just the amount of money is different. And there was simplicity there. I would say you cannot overemphasize how important it is to be simple and how important it is to be straightforward. When I was a curator, you wouldn't believe how many proposals and artist statements I got that I would read through them several times and I couldn't understand what the person is physically doing. Is it painting? Is it sculpture? Is it performance? So kind of having that I'm a painter and this is what I'm doing somewhere in the very beginning of any story you're beginning to tell is very, very important for a person to get a grounding of what are they dealing with. And now a little bit to what we're doing at the Cleveland Foundation. Every foundation and every residency and every museum, they will have different focus. That will be defined by many, many different things. Sometimes historical function of an institution, sometimes some sort of strategic plan, sometimes preferences of a person who is running the program. Most of the times it's going to be overlap of all of these things. Cleveland Foundation historically supports institutions. So we don't do grants directly to the artists, but we might give grants to institutions that support artists, for example. Or we might give a grant to an artist who wants to establish an institution or an organization or a nonprofit. And this happens all the time. So with the Cleveland Foundation, let's say with any foundation really, and with any residency, you need to seek this overlap between what you're trying to do, what you want to do in your art, and what they prefer or what they like doing. And if that overlap exists, then you can try and kind of get in there and write a proposal or call up and talk to the program director. If there is no overlap, there's no reason to spend anyone's energy. And this is because we are a community foundation, because we're local, we only work with local organizations. I encourage people to reach out to me and ask me questions before they submit anything. We don't want anyone to to invest time in the proposal and then not get anywhere. So, for example, if you're a painter and you need a grant to create a body of work, I would most probably tell you, not really, that's not us. That's maybe Cuyahoga Arts Council, that's maybe some other place, but not us. But if you're a painter and you want to, I'm making this up, establish a school of painting, and you have a good reason to establish it in a certain place for a certain community, then we'll be interested. And then we'll have a coffee and have a conversation. What is it exactly trying to do? Why? Who does it serve? Why it's important? And then you will submit. I'm also asking people to send me drafts. So people will send me drafts by email and I will read them, respond to them. So when the proposal is actually submitted, I know what's coming in. And then we can pretty much respond in real time. Some other important things when working with maybe grants specifically. As I said, we don't work with artists, but artists who want to establish something can approach us and ask for support. And then, for example, you could come to the assembly and ask them to be a fiscal sponsor, which means we can only give grants to registered nonprofit, what they call 501c3. If you still don't have that status, you can ask the Assembly for the Arts to be your representative 501c3. And what you need to understand that the Assembly for the Arts will be fiscally responsible for the money that we will give you. So that is your relationship with the Assembly for the Arts or with any other fiscal sponsor that you will work with. So it's not, the fiscal sponsor is not just kind of a pipeline to get the money through. It's actually their head on the line in terms of accounting and reporting and IRS and everything. So it's very important when you approach a fiscal sponsor to understand that and to have a very open conversation with them. What do you need the money for? How you're going to use it, and to establish relationship and rules about how you're going to access that money. And you will be surprised how hard people work at the foundation to get to the yes. I know that mostly the relationships with foundations are very frustrating. You will apply, you receive negative response, you have no idea what happened. On the other end, there will be somebody who actually will really want you to give you the money. In most of the cases. But in most of the cases, they will have way more applications than they can possibly fund. And then all of these things become very, very, very important. Talk to a person if possible. If they take calls, always call. Sometimes it will be even national foundations, National Endowment for the Arts. The government, federal organization that deals with probably thousands of applications a year, they will take your call. You can actually talk to them, talk to a person, and they're extremely helpful. So the more you do before you submit the application, the higher your chances to actually get accepted.
Well, let's just check these questions and see if this is okay. So how are funding decisions made? What's the scoring criteria? Who is making the decisions? These are things, Boris, would you agree with this? These are okay questions to be asking a funder when you reach out to them, and any insight that into what you're looking for. So,
I would suggest you ask funder absolutely anything you believe you need to know. There is nothing you cannot ask, and if you're asking for something that is a secret, they will just tell you, hey, we cannot share this information.
Artist funding opportunities, in most cases, are competitive. So there is no guarantee you'll be selected. And no matter how well you put together your application, there's always a chance it could be denied. But you just heard from the source. If you do everything that he suggested and some of the tips that we're going to go through, your chances are greatly improved. But don't stop trying, even if you get denied.